This is The Great Debate.
First on the left, he's heard each afternoon on 69 stations across the country by over 1.5 million listeners. He can be heard locally at WCPT AM and FM. He's the author of numerous books, has been named America's most important liberal talker by Talkers Magazine. He holds a PhD in homeopathic medicine, and he lives in Portland, Oregon. Would you please welcome Thom Hartmann.
It seems to me that one of the biggest challenges that we're facing, particularly as we go into this new Obama era, as it were, is redefining our notion of the commons, of what is the appropriate function and purpose of government. This has been a debate we've been having in this country literally since its inception, in fact, for 100 years before its inception. And it's one that I think reasonable, honest people with a lot of integrity and a lot of goodwill who truly love their nation can strongly disagree on. Where does the commons begin and where does it end? You know, what is it all about? People say, this is, our school systems are socialist or something, these words get thrown around a lot. And yet nobody's objecting to our socialist police departments or our socialist fire departments or the socialist public streets that we have or the socialist water systems and electric systems in community systems. The question is, where do our rights begin and end, and how do we constrain government in a way that will protect our rights and yet will not take them? United Healthcare, the second largest health insurance company in the world, or in the United States anyway, probably in the world, United Healthcare, as the Wall Street Journal pointed out on their front page year before last, paid their CEO, William McGuire, who the Wall Street Journal referred to as Dollar Bill McGuire. That was his name within the healthcare industry. This is one of the guys who helped Billy Towson get his job at $2 million a year as the head of pharma after he shepherded Medicaid Part D through, the Republican congressman. He was paid $1.78 billion. This from the health insurance company that routinely asks people, prove that you actually are sick. Oh, you have a pre-existing condition? No, I'm sorry, we're not going to pay your bill. The fact of the matter is that if our insurance is covered by a single payer, and that single payer happens to be us, and let me put a punctuation point on that, because in my world, as an American, the government is not a them. I was in the Soviet Union. I was in the Soviet Union when it was the Soviet Union. I was in East Germany when it was East Germany. I lived in Germany right on the border. The government in those cases, I was in Uganda during the war against Idi Amin. I have been in hellish places. I was in Darfur in March. In those places, the government definitely is a them. Bashir, who was just indicted by the International Criminal Court, deserves to rot in hell and be dragged before the court first. But our government is a government of us, we the people, the first three words of the Constitution. So we have a choice. We have a very simple choice. The way that this is presented typically by conservatives is to say, do you really want the government telling you what doctor you can go to? Do you really want the government telling you what health care you can have? And of course not. None of us do. Here's the other half of the question, because it's not a yes or no question. It's, do you want the government telling you what doctor you can see and paying the doctor? Or do you want Bill McGuire, who skimmed $1.78 billion off the top, has a private jet with gold-plated bathtubs, washcloths, and a multi-million dollar a month pension? Do you want him telling you? Because those are the two alternatives that we have in the United States, unless you happen to have $2 million in your checkbook. By demand in a supply and demand economy, and the single source of demand in this economy is wages. You can't have an economy recover without decent wages. And union jobs are good paying jobs. And a company that cannot function in a way that will allow it to pay decent wages to its people is a company that does not deserve to exist.
Okay. And so, in other words, Thom, you would say, when you say decent wages, who defines what the decent wages are? I happen to believe that having
The Republican Teddy Roosevelt.
What's that?
The Republican Teddy Roosevelt. In 1913, Teddy Roosevelt said, he invented the phrase living wage. And he said a living wage is enough that you can have morality in your life. In other words, you don't have to steal for food and things. That you can raise your children to adulthood. You can pay for their education. You can pay for your health care in times of sickness. You can have an annual vacation. And you can set aside enough for retirement and old age.
You would like to see the government, guaranteeing all of that.
I would like to see that in the workplace, the unions have an equal power with capital. I would like the people in the workplace to have the ability to say, this is what we will work for, nothing less. Well, I was not in favor of TARP in the first place, but I think that's outrageous. I think it's also an indication of the way that our media tilts, that there frankly has been very little coverage of the fact that Citibank or Citicorp funded that. That they took some of our TARP money and they used it in anti-union activities, or just in support of anti-union activities. I suspect if they had had the same conference call about how to, for example, take away people's guns, or make sure that gay marriage was legal in every state in the union, it would have been all over the front of Drudge, and then it would have migrated to the front page of the Washington Post, and then it would have migrated to every TV news host in America, and for 2 whole weeks we would have been talking about it. But because it just had to do with working people, no, it didn't get much coverage. In several cities in the last 5, 6 Arbitron books the last 2 years, I beat Rush Limbaugh on the ratings in multiple cities on multiple occasions. In Los Angeles, I beat Bill O'Reilly 2-1. Progressive talk radio actually does win. But here's the point. The reason why so few stations have picked it up is because those stories have not been heard. Those stories have not been told. There are a few very successful progressive talk shows. There are a few very profitable and mine is one of them, the progressive talk shows. But by and large, that critical mass, and I'm guessing that within the next year or two we're going to hit it, that critical mass where program directors are saying, if I put Hartmann on the air, if I put Stephanie Miller on the air, if I put Ed Schultz on the air, if I put Randy Rhoads on the air, I won't get fired. That conventional wisdom will shift, and then we're going to see more of a 50-50, because I think that in a 50-50 America, people actually do want to hear voices from both sides. We are all Americans in this country. We are all decent people in this country. We all bleed the same blood. We all will have the same god-awful problem if, for example, our healthcare system melts down, either because I'm right or you're right, or wrong, and say, for example, there's a SARS epidemic or a TB epidemic or bird flu or, God forbid, whatever. We're all in this together. I think we need to stop the straw men. I think we need to stop the demonization. I'm really pleased, Michael, that you would share this platform with me. And I very much honor the conservatives who come on my show with a regular basis, and I get a lot of feedback from my listeners that they do too, that they're willing to have these conversations. More and more, in my opinion, we need to take it beyond the gotcha, and take it to the bigger picture, to take it to the large issues. What is this country really about? How can we make a better America? What are the areas where we can agree? How can we define this? I started with the commons. I want to end with the commons, and with our disagreement on what the commons is, and a respectful disagreement. But nonetheless, we need to be having these conversations, because if we don't have these conversations in ways that are transpartisan, that go beyond my side, your side, that go beyond who's angry and who's not, who's happy and who's not, that go beyond the whole issue of who's even right or wrong, but instead address what's the best thing for our children and grandchildren, future generations, and frankly, all life on Earth. If we don't start having those conversations, there may not be a world for our children and grandchildren. And so it's so vitally important, in my humble opinion, that we have these kind of conversations. And I want to thank you all for being part of it. And I want to thank you, particularly Michael, and our moderators for making this happen. And the 2 radio stations who made it happen. Baruch Hashem, and God bless you all.
Thom Hartmann and Michael Medved, ladies and gentlemen. Thom Hartmann and Michael Medved. Give them a round of applause. Our moderators, Cisco, Cotto, and Dick Kay. Give them a round of applause, please.